It's Wednesday night. You know what that means. Wrestling Inc.'s live post AEW Dynamite podcast coming at you here on the internet across all the platforms, wherever you might be, YouTube, Twitch, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. It's all good. You're going to get some entertainment no matter what. Hello and good evening if you're with us live. Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you all might be on the archive. I am Justin LaBar coming to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, being joined first by the Demon Diva. She's NYC's Demon Diva, but she is Puerto Rico residing tonight. Issa, how are you?
I'm doing well. Happy to be talking some Dynamite with you guys. What an interesting show.
Yeah, I said briefly to Jimmy just before you came into the studio. I said to him, I was like, there was some definite ups and some definite downs. So
Yep.
roller coaster of content tonight. Jimmy Korderas, north of the border in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. He's a former WWE referee of 20 plus years. So let's not disregard that. When the man speaks, Jimmy, how are you tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing well, and like you said, it's a very interesting night to chat about. Some ups, some downs, and we will definitely get to those. But I'm sure we got some news to get to first.
Yeah, we'll get into some news here again as we see the live chat. People coming in and getting their place. We thank you again if you listen to this podcast, usually in archive form, audio or video. If you ever wonder, hey, what would it be like to be part of this live? Well, I encourage you to try to carve out some time if it works, depending on what time zone you are in. It is 10:15 p.m. Eastern time here in the United States. And if you are watching live and you get on YouTube or Twitch, there's a live chat going on. Very much a community kind of watches along Dynamite or Raw or whatever the case may be. So you can be part of that chat. We kind of keep an eye on that chat. If you want to ensure yourself to get part of the show, put a few bucks with it, and Super Chat guarantees you that we will comment and talk about your thoughts. So if you want to be part of it live, absolutely. But no matter what, we encourage you, please leave a 5-star rating on whatever platform you like this podcast. It's a huge help to us, and we've been getting more and more of them. It's awesome. Very much appreciated. It helps all the things we got going on here early on in 2023 and more big plans to come. Let's go ahead and get into some news. Here's 2 news headlines you can find on WrestlingInc.com, 2 of very many that you can find on WrestlingInc.com, completely free website to access 24/7. It's a sad story, but it looks like it might have a positive outcome as we stand now. WWE Hall of Famer and wrestling legend Jerry the King Lawler was hospitalized earlier this week after suffering a stroke outside of his Florida condo. He underwent surgery, and many friends such as Dutch Mantell, Jimmy Hart, Jim Ross, all taking to the public to keep them respectfully updated on the King's condition. Jim Ross, obviously famous broadcast partner with Lawler. JR did tweet that he spoke very briefly with Lawler. He's obviously weak, but he could understand his affected speech, and Jerry's prognosis is positive, but he needs all of our thoughts and prayers. That, I believe, was last night, as in Tuesday night. I have since seen Lawler's official social media accounts post some pictures in the hospital of him, giving the thumbs up, the mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart there. Of course, those two go way back to the days in Memphis. So looks like King's going to be okay. But Jimmy, this is obviously, scary for anybody, but the King, who it was a decade ago, had a heart attack on live television while at the commentary desk on Monday Night Raw. Very scary. He's credited current AEW ringside physician, at the time WWE medical ringside physician Michael Sampson, for basically saving his life, as if Doc Sampson didn't do what he did. King's not with us here today. So very scary background when you hear about the King having a cardiac issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I've said today on my social media accounts, all thoughts and prayers are going with the King. King is an awesome guy, and he's a fighter. And like you said, Justin, the good news today is we saw the pictures of him. He seems to be in better. I don't want to say he's well, but he seems to be out of the woods so far. It's going to be a road to recovery, but King is a fighter, and King will battle back. And I'm thinking positive, nothing but positivity. I know, King, you're going to beat this. I know you're going to be back doing what you do best, and that is to entertain us. But the other thing about King was he was a good friend to me, and also there when I was going through a rough period in my professional and personal career with another tragedy that happened in the past. And I can't thank him enough for his guidance for me and helping me get through that. He's, like I said, he's just an awesome dude. And King, I know you're going to be back.
Yeah, Issa, Jerry Lawler, I mean, and I'm happy that we're able to kind of like pay tribute and talk about his influence to the business while he's alive. It looks like again he's coming out of this okay. Has his fingerprint on everything. If you really look at wrestling history, Jerry Lawler, I mean, all the ECW originals will tell you that ECW is a byproduct of the Memphis territory, of the violence of what they did. Certainly the King. He was making pro wrestling into sports entertainment long before Vince ever said that term. Obviously, going back to the Andy Kaufman crossover, and then the relevance, and then the rebirth of his career behind a commentary desk. Issa, people in yours and mine's age bracket, we of course have seen him wrestle live or in the vault, but of course he was the voice of the Attitude Era alongside JR. So I mean, the King has so many. He is just a wrestling chameleon, the way he kind of just
Right. That's how I was introduced to the King, was just through commentary. And I absolutely love his witty, his very quick thinking, like his responses to things. Like he's so good at his job. And I remember the more that I got into wrestling, the more that I started researching and studying. And that's when I realized like his career, his background, the way that he started in Memphis to becoming the biggest promoter in that area, like it's insane, the history that he has. And it made me very sad when I read the news, but at the same time, I opened Twitter and saw the update. It was the first thing that popped up, those photos that you mentioned, and it really made my heart happy to see this. He is a fighter, like Jimmy said. I mean, you just mentioned what happened to him live on an episode of Raw on air, and he came right back from that. And I've been sending all of the positive thoughts and prayers that he's gonna make it out of this, and we're gonna see him again. I don't know that we'll see him wrestle again, because if I'm not mistaken, he's still doing a match here or there, which is crazy to me.
It's not even necessarily here or there. I mean, he works at least a weekend a month. It still seems.
Yeah. So I don't know if he's gonna take this opportunity to slow that down, but we just saw him at Raw 30 on the commentary table. So I'm just looking forward to seeing him again. Take your time recovering, obviously, but I think he's a fighter and he's gonna be okay. Nothing but thoughts and prayers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Jimmy, I'm sure you have a million. Issa, I don't know if you have. I'll just share one story I have with the King real quick, and I've never shared the story, but it's out of appreciation to him. Of course, being a fan of his, but I also have a professional appreciation to him. When I in late 2010, early 2011, or early 2010, excuse me, early 2010, when we started Chair Shot Reality, a video kind of talk show. A podcast. The King was one of the first guests we ever got to do an interview for our show, and I'll never forget, I got his number through a mutual friend, and they said it's okay, and so I trusted them, and I cold called the King and introduced myself, and he and I had a few mutual friends, but basically it's still a cold call, and I hear the Southern Tennessee accent pick up, and he didn't hang up on me. He gave me a minute to introduce myself and make my pitch, and at the end, long story short, he did the interview. I didn't ask anything for it. He did it. And then after that, I did interview him a few more times in different ways. And I'll never forget that, because that was a very credible interview that helped just get us on the map very early on in our first 20 episodes, him giving us 15, 20 minutes of time to talk about what was going on in the WWE world. So, I'm always, thankful for him just taking 20 minutes out of his legendary career to talk to us. And that helped us a lot more than he didn't need to do.
I love that.
Yeah, that's great. It just goes to show you what kind of a guy King is, and he's willing to help anyone, especially if you ask for it. King is more than willing to share that wealth of knowledge. You talk about smart guys in this business. Smart guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I got a picture with him a few years later at a Raw event, and I posted it yesterday on Twitter. That's my Jerry Lawler personal appreciation. We could go on for an entire podcast about fan appreciation for his impact.
I had a fan story where I was staying at the same hotel where they were all staying, and I was having lunch with a friend that had nothing to do with what I was in town for. I was there for a wrestling event, and my friend saw him across the restaurant area, and I was like, we're not gonna bother wrestlers or anybody while they're eating, And I think that King noticed him, because my friend literally just marked out at seeing King, and King had no problem interrupting what he was doing to talk to him, and they took a picture together, and they went on and had like a 15-minute conversation, which I thought was just incredible, because that's their private time doing their own thing, but he saw the fan, acknowledge, and they had a great conversation. So I thought that was very respectable of him.
That's awesome to hear.
Nice.
Jimmy, I've always thought this about King, going back to the Attitude Era. Obviously, he was a great, he was the perfect kind of commentary and foil to Jim Ross for that time. And I know King's been very vocal. King didn't like to go to production meetings. He didn't like to know too much. He liked to genuinely react. So he was very good in the commentary role. But I always think, he and Jerry Jarrett, 6 months apart, would take turns booking Memphis, and obviously book some legendary television in Memphis. I always wondered, when there was still a small circle, when Vince McMahon still, the booking committee was Vince with Pat and maybe Vince Russo or Cornette or whomever at the time booking at Vince's pool before there was a big writer's room. I always thought, what would the attitude? What could Jerry have contributed to the Attitude Era if he got to be part of that old school small circle of booking?
Oh, that's an interesting question. That is now you got me thinking. I like you mentioned earlier that he was kind of like ECW before ECW became took Memphis to the extreme, for lack of a better term. And can you imagine kind of implementing that into Attitude Era WWE with Jerry Lawler giving his input and knowing how to present it? He's so smart. He would know how to present it to Vince, where Vince would look at it and see the value in it. Yeah. And probably utilize a lot of King's ideas, because he's that good at not only coming up with ideas, but presenting them in a way that would be appreciated by someone like Vince. So, man, who knows? Maybe things would have been slightly different than what we got.
Yeah. Oh, I've always wondered that, and this was like the perfect kind of time to kind of put that out there. But the important thing is King looks like he's, as Jimmy phrased it, out of the woods and on the other side of things and getting better. So we continue to watch for that, and best wishes to King and to his close family. All right, another news item. Again, WrestlingInc.com. You can find this full story. Deonna Purrazzo. If you are not familiar with her, I would suggest you get familiar with her. She, of course, if you're familiar with her, very prominent female talent in Impact Wrestling. She's been around. She even had some time under the WWE roof, but Impact is where she really has made her name. And Fightful Select is reporting that Impact has exercised a 1-year option on Purrazzo's contract, keeping her with the promotion through the remainder of this year, 2023. So it looks like January 1st, 2024, she will be a free agent unless something happens prior to then. So add her to the list with MJF of the bidding war of 2024. And of course, Fightful Select goes on to note what I would say is common sense, which is many organizations are expected to be pursuing her and trying to pitch their best offers to her. She's currently 28, and Issa, I'll go to you as our female here on the panel. I don't know how much of Deonna you've seen, but please, if you haven't, let me please suggest to you go check her out. I think that she is a stud of a talent who has really got her stock to rise in the last couple of years and has used Impact as a great platform to elevate herself to the point to where she will be a hot commodity in the female talent pool.
Quite a bit, and I do think it will be a bidding war. I think what she's done in Impact has been absolutely incredible. I have been keeping a close eye on the Knockouts division. I've been praising it for quite a while now. The Impact pay-per-views and the women over there are putting some incredible matches, and Deonna Purrazzo is part of that. And I think with her history, the way that NXT kind of just let her go so quietly, like it was nothing, from that to maybe coming to WWE straight to the main roster and possibly even straight into a championship program, because I think she's capable of that and more. I think it would just be an amazing story to how it started and where we're going with it. So I'm looking forward to see what she does next. But yeah, I'm with you on that. If you haven't seen what she's doing on Impact, I highly suggest you go check it out. Not just her, that entire Knockouts division in Impact is incredible. She has some great competition over there that allows her to shine.
Jimmy, I don't want to fantasy book myself to a point where I might get disappointed if life doesn't play out this way, but I would love for Royal Rumble 24 to see Deonna Purrazzo.
Oh, you're reading my mind, my friend. You're reading my mind. We've been too much on the same page lately, or maybe that's a good thing. But yeah. I was just thinking that same thing, because when Issa was saying, show up next year when her contract is up in Impact Wrestling and make an impact somewhere else, and she could get herself into a championship picture right out of the gate. What a better way than to debut at the Royal Rumble in 2024 and, run through the entire women's division and get that championship match at WrestleMania. But in the meantime, like you said, she's been knocking it out of the park in Impact Wrestling right now. And another year there will only help her develop that much more. Maybe this isn't the right time for her to go to a bigger, quote unquote, bigger company like WWE or even AEW, because there's a chance with those rosters being so deep in the women's talent pool, she might get kind of lost in the shuffle for a little bit at this moment. So having a plan, like you said, maybe having her show up at the Royal Rumble re-debuting there, maybe that's a good way to go. And I think, like you said, there's a talent. There's going to be a bit of a bidding war. She's going to be a wanted commodity when this contract is up.
And that would be a first off in in the women's Royal Rumble history for somebody to debut and win it. That would be just incredible.
Yeah, I wasn't even fantasy booking her to win it, but now if you take it a step further, that would be a huge deal. Yeah, I mean, I think this year, I think 2023 is going to be a very interesting year on the WWE female talent roster, because I think something interesting has happened in the last couple of years. They did the female revolution of, okay, we need more females, we acquire more, we're gonna have more titles for them. But then I think there still was a lack of consistency, obviously, by the previous regime. I think this year is going to be Triple H and company watching very closely about, I don't want to say the term cutting fat, but I think we're going to figure out, okay, who do we really need? And then also align that with, let's get NXT back in sync with whatever Sean's got grooming down there. So I think watching this year's roster for the women on WWE is going to be a fascinating thing.
And we saw an example of that at the Rumble, because we didn't see any NXT talent in the men's Rumble. That wasn't the case in the women's Rumble. We saw quite a few of the NXT faces show up in the women's Rumble. So we're already seeing signs of this.
Yes, and that's a great point. And I think there's more interesting stories of the females coming up through the NXT ranks that, some of which we saw at the Rumble, and then you have others like, Ava Raine, the Rock Star. Like, I think there's just a lot to be looked at. So I think NXT
television is mostly the women's wrestling. Like, if you watch the 2 hours of it, I do think the women have more airtime, as of right now than the guys.
And so saying that, I think Triple H company on the main roster might be a little bit more, I think I don't want to say cutthroat, but I think there's going to be just a tougher standard of, okay, do we have a place for this lady? Because we have A, B, and C coming up here. So fascinating stuff to watch. All right, that's your news. That's our dive into WWE for the moment here. Let's talk about AEW Dynamite tonight, coming to you from El Paso, Texas. Not the biggest venue, but a pretty loud crowd for the most part. So shout out to the El Paso fans. And we kick it off hot with MJF, your AEW World Champion, going up against Konosuke Takeshita. Of course, MJF has berated this young star over the past few weeks. We've seen interaction, so there is backstory here. MJF, just the simplest things that he can get heat, whether it's just powdering out through the ropes to not take a big strike, or even getting his face rammed into the ring post and the fans chanting, "You deserve it." I mean, simple things. He just generates so much reaction, and that's the name of the game in this business, where you're trying to generate reaction, but also keep your bump count down. You noticed this, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely, I did. And he was getting reactions, like you said, doing the simplest things, and he was getting the crowd invested, and they were actually booing him. A heel that enjoys getting booed instead of wanting to be that cool kind of heel. There's nothing about him that's cool unless you're a wrestling critique, when you can say, yes, he's doing a hell of a job being a heel. But at the same time, as a fan watching, I'm going, man, this guy is a piece of crap. Yeah. And I want to see him get his ass kicked. And that's the name of the game. And he does it so well. And they took their time. Yeah. And they sold. And what more can I say? I enjoyed that part of the match very, very much.
And before we get to the finish and the post match, I mean, let's give some shout out to Takeshita. I mean, he had his shining moments. MJF gave it to him, and MJF did his part too of 1, 2, 2 and 7/8 on some close calls, some false finishes. Takeshita, I think, got elevated, and Jimmy, I'll steal your phrase, got over without going over, because MJF does ultimately win with his salt of the earth armbar. And then after the match, puts on the Dynamite Diamond ring, hits Takeshita. Takeshita's bleeding. So, the heat's there. But again, the heat's there. MJF wins as we expected, but Takeshita did not look like he got buried. He looked like he went toe-to-toe with the AEW World Champion.
He did. As a matter of fact, for the first few minutes of the match, I personally thought that Takeshita was starting to look better than MJF, and I even said it during my live stream where I was like, okay, we gotta give MJF something here. But then they were going toe to toe, as you mentioned. Banger, and I'm so glad that I was wrong when I'm thinking, did the show just speak? Who's gonna outdo this? Well, in ring wise, I have no complaints about AEW tonight. We got some great in ring action, and this just set the pace for some of the matches we were gonna see tonight. I'm happy to see MJF wrestle. It does feel like a big deal when he wrestles because they don't have him out there wrestling every week, but his presence is felt in the show, so he's doing a good job as a world champ where he's always there, but you're not seeing him wrestle every single week. I could have done without the blood from the from the ring punch here. I really could have done without that though.
I could have also done without, once again, cameras catching
the blade. That's why I was gonna, that's why I said I could have done without it, because they're not doing the best job production wise.
I wouldn't have minded if we didn't see some later. Let's put it that way.
Oh, great point.
Well, and we will get to it, but I think the irony, Jimmy, is the most profound use of it later, I think, was by accident.
No, okay. This is funny because I'm watching. You know how I do a live stream? I watch the shows live with my YouTube subscribers, and somebody said, "Hey, is Brian bleeding the hard way?" And I said it, and I kind of blurred it out. I was like, "Oh, it has to be, because if it was a blade job, they would have shown it."
Right.
It's true. They did it with Mox last week too. It's just getting a little too obvious, and we nitpick, and it's just because AEW can be so good. But a lot of times when it's production was causing these tiny little mistakes that turn you off from the show, it's not the performers. There has to be some changes that need to be made.
Yeah. It's a combination of talent and production crew need to get together. That was one of the things that, at least back in the day in WWE when we were working TV, they would come out and say, "Hey, is there anything in their match that you're having that we need to be aware of, whether to shoot properly or to not shoot properly?" So that there needs to be that communication there.
Well, and like last week, as we talked about in the Mox match, there was obviously a lack of communication, and then we just blatantly saw Mox in the act of doing the magic. What frustrated me even more this week was, if you caught it, you could see, Takeshita obviously, he figured a camera cut was away, and he starts to whatever. Then, then once MJF gets back to him, Takeshita is lying there, and they have a camera angle shooting mat level across from him, and he has an half open palm, and I see this shiny silver thing, and then he finally cups his hand when maybe he realized where he was, and I'm like, that's not even production. That gets to a point where production has to then shoot MJF punching you. That then is on the talent. Like, you got to conceal that. You got to hand it off to the ref. You got to tuck it somewhere. You got to do something. Maybe that's just inexperience of using that trick on TV where you have cameras. Maybe he's only ever bladed on non-televised events. I don't know. But this was a very good match, X's and O's wise. Very good for the story of MJF, by hook or by crook, keeping his spot. Takeshita got over. So all that is there, not to be lost. But I think it's only fair, because if we took John Moxley to the woodshed last week verbally, I'm going to take it to the woodshed again here, that they did no better with concealing the tricks here.
And one little quick thing that I'm not going to elaborate too much on, because we'll get to it later on, is the ref distraction spot. It's like Issa knows where I'm going, probably where I'm going with this, but it ties into something later on. So I will save it for then. How's that?
I can't wait, because I know where you're going with it. I just know it.
Save it. Save it. We have plenty more MJF that we'll talk about. I'm going to stay linear for this. I'm just going to wait, and we'll do all the MJF as we get to each one of them. Again, as we approach a half hour, thank you to everybody who's coming onto the live stream here, live or archived at all. Please, again, leave a comment or a like or a share, especially a 5-star rating on the actual Wrestling Inc. channel, whether that's YouTube, Twitch, Spotify, Apple, whatever it may be. That goes a long way for us. We're trying to do some exciting things here in 2023. My hope is that we can get the gang, the three of us and maybe a few others, together, and we can get to your town for some of these big events, so we can get you truly involved.
I would love that.
That would be cool.
Let's keep the support going. Tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend. They'll tell a friend as well.
Tell everybody.
Up next, tell everybody. Up next, The Bunny versus Jamie Hayter.
Do you have a clapping? Do you have a clapping sound effect? Something?
Wait.
Do I?
Somebody, like, this was crazy. Play the national anthem. I don't know. We got to do something. This was special.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because of the timing, you mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, it was. They did shake up the timing here.
Did it not take you by surprise? Because I looked at my time. I'm thinking, I'm like, how many shots of Malibu did I have tonight? Like,
yeah, I thought I might have passed out for an hour and a half and missed a bunch of the show when the ladies came out. So I had to look at my what the
amazing.
Well, this one's going to have the ripcord from Jamie Hayter on the Bunny. This is right after they take a ill-timed spot with each other. It looks like Jamie Hayter comes down hard on the Bunny's face.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like they called an audible to go home early, that they just did this ripcord and got out of there. I don't know what the deal is. I hope Bunny is okay, but this did look like she was legit shaken up face in the facial region wise. Terry Allen Jr. with the super chat. Thank you, Terry Allen Jr. $10.10. He says the Bunny lacks wins, didn't earn this match. A flaw within Tony's booking. Many wrestlers lack continuous appearances to gain wins, then receive title matches. Basic. Yeah, I mean, I think regardless of the quick go home, obviously Jamie Hayter was going to win this no matter what. Right. Terry, I do agree to point. The Bunny, and they acknowledge this on commentary, Issa. The Bunny she's one of the originals. She's been around from the infancy of AEW. And so she has history there, but not a lot of consistency recently.
We haven't seen her on TV in some time, and Jamie Hayter and Rebel and Britt Baker were in a complete different feud. As of last week, the last time we saw these ladies, Britt Baker and Rebel was getting beat up by Toni Storm and Soraya. And now they're over here fighting the Bunny. So I didn't think it made any sense. As much as I love seeing the women in a different time spot, and I point that out, and I'll give them props for that, I didn't think that the match made any sense. And there's a lot of just not a match is just to put the women on the card. It feels a lot like that with All Elite Wrestling, and I wish that wasn't the case. And yeah, that bump at the end was scary. I hope that Bunny is okay, because it was very obvious that something didn't go as planned there.
Yeah.
Well, Lisa, we'll say this before we get to Jimmy. While I do agree, the focus here for Hayter and Britt and them is Tony and Saraya, and we'll get to the Tony and Saraya in a second. They did last week their best attempt they did promote this match. It was Hayter having a backstage with Bunny and company, and then we saw on the TV Tony and Saraya attacking Britt. So I mean, they did give us at least a setup, but it's random on the fact of kind of the Terry Allen's chat. Like, what has the Bunny done? You know, where is that holy ranking system all of a sudden? What's the Bunny's record? Why is she getting a shot to Hayter? So they did advertise it last week, but even then, it is still kind of a mystery, Jimmy, as to why is the Bunny all of a sudden there's so many other ladies I could rattle off that I would feel like would be more suitable for a title match.
No, you're absolutely right. And here's the thing, and here's their thinking of an out in this situation. They call it a championship eliminator match. That's what the first match was. That's what this match is. It's basically you have to beat the champion in order to get a championship match.
Yes,
you know that
to be the champ, you have to beat the champ and then beat the champ again. That's how it works.
To me, that makes no sense. You know what happened to the days where you worked your way up through other title contenders and earned your opportunity? Not you deserve it, you earned it. And
we used to have those days, but then they got rid of the rankings.
Gotcha. That's why.
Yeah.
But see, I don't like the concept of the championship eliminator match. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like I said, you have to beat the champ twice to become champ.
You know what it is? It's kind of funny. AEW, since they've existed, they've gone out of their way. In a lot of ways, it's been successful. They've gone out of the way to do things different than how WWE does. They try to do the alternative, right? How they present a lot of things, and a lot of it was, and still to an extent is, a breath of fresh air. That's one of the things that's surprising. One of the things that WWE used to do so annoying prior to Triple H's takeover under the Vince, so annoying was the same thing. you had to beat the champion and non-title, and so I'm very surprised that AEW's kind of fallen into that trap of doing that same same path.
I guess they figure calling it something different makes it okay.
I guess it seems even more ridiculous when you do that, because you're setting up now rematches when you have the bloated roster that you have. You don't. It's not like you have a lack of bodies here.
True.
So we do see Toni Storm and Saraya backstage. They're backstage cutting a promo. They call. There's a lot of NWO influence here. They call Jamie Hayter a loser. They then attack Leva Bates, turn her over, and spray paint loser on her, and then Saraya with her final line of "This is a takeover." So takeover, loser, spray paint. A lot of NWO vocabulary and imagery here. Jimmy, I don't know if I've actually directly asked you this question. What is your thoughts on Saraya and Toni Storm? Both came out to the big holy you-know-what pops that they were WWE stars that have come over to AEW on the first night. But what are your thoughts on AEW trying to book them as the heels that are against the AEW establishment? Again, NWO light-esque.
I don't have an issue with the idea and the concept of it. I just have a problem with the delivery. I'd like to see more of them getting in people's faces and saying, you know what? We were in the big time. We're now come here to elevate you guys, or something along those lines. It's kind of like what Jericho's doing with he knows that audience is very anti-sports entertainment and that reference. So Chris knows that by calling himself a sports entertainer, he's going to get that heat. And these girls need to get that heat by saying, look, we are better than you. We came from a place that's better than you. And the reason we're here is not because we're not good enough for that place, but we want to elevate you guys. Or something along those lines. Infer that you're better than them.
Yeah, I am 1000% with you, Jimmy. I thought Saraya was doing a little bit of a more clear job at expressing that during her feud with Britt Baker, which I always thought she came off as the heel, just talking about being so deserving because of everything she went through to get here and all the things that she's done. I would like to see them go back to that. I do think that I don't know if it's doing much for Toni Storm right now. Toni Storm feels a little lost in the shuffle. It feels like it's more about Saraya. But we'll see her come into her own. She had that weird title run that was interim, but it wasn't. But they established that it wasn't interim after she had already lost it. Like, I feel like Toni Storm is very lost in the weird shuffle here, but we'll see where it goes.
Issa, because you kind of were even telling us, and I think you were in support of Jamie Hayter before some of us even got onto that train. Where's Jamie Hayter's momentum? She's still the champion, but she's champion. Maybe it's just from personal connection. I still think Britt's a bigger star.
Oh yeah.
And then you have Saraya and Toni. So what are we leading to? Where are we going here?
The problem is that you're putting them in matches. It's the same. It's the Jade effect too, where you're putting them in matches with not what people are considering the top names in the company right now, right? You're not turning Britt Baker against her. That's the match. Yeah. You're not putting Jade, for example, against Britt, against Saraya, against Toni Storm, against Cheetah. You just haven't wrestled this talent that is just there to elevate her. She still has a great crowd reaction. When she came out, you hear it. People love her. I still think she has some momentum, but again, we are 3 weeks away from the pay-per-view, and as of this moment in the show, no match has been made for it yet. Why? You have months to build this pay-per-view. Why not build an epic feud for her that can't wait to get to Revolution and see what Jamie Hayter can do? As of right now, we don't even know who she's going to be facing at the pay-per-view. Yeah. It might be a trios match, and the title might not even be on the line the way that this is going. So I am extremely disappointed in the fact that I feel like AEW, when it first came into the scene, I love the fact that they have so few pay-per-views because it makes you look forward to it, but not when you're adding the matches the night before. I thought we were going to have epic feuds like what they did with MJF and CM Punk, where we have months and we had to wait for it, and you could be doing that and you're not. So you're going to build a feud for her in 2 weeks? That's not going to work for me, bro.
Yeah, that's a good call. I think you're right. We're on the countdown now to the next pay-per-view. I think they need to establish what is.
They have one match, and that's because Brian beat Rouge tonight, so they finally established that world title match. That's all they have on the card. They've had 3 months to build this pay-per-view.
Yeah, that's an interesting.
Yeah.
That's a whole other subplot that we could talk about.
Yeah, and I
Right.
only brought it up because of what you said, the momentum of Jamie Hayter. You could have her in some epic feud that will clash at the pay-per-view, and that could be what we're doing with her. And maybe her connection to Britt Baker might be hurting her, because I do think you're right. I still see Britt as the bigger star. I see her as the biggest woman star in AEW, and she hasn't had the title in how long now?
Yeah. And then over here you have this whole other thing with Jade Cargill, this whole other project of
Right.
Yeah, but I think you're right. Issa. I mean, we're inside of territory of you need to start having matches, and like, what is our women's match going to be? So something.
But hey, they were in a different time spot tonight. Maybe that's the first step. Okay.
baby step.
Yeah.
Baby step.
You see, and hopefully Bunny's okay, like you said.
Yes. That was scary.
Yeah. Indeed. All right. Our next of MJF's appearances, he's backstage. This was I've never wrote down some of these words on paper, and then I crossed some of them out. So, I'll just
say it.
No, I Jimmy's Issa. I don't have any shame in front of you. I mean, I'm just gonna get the cliff notes.
Yeah,
because I don't really know. I don't know. Here we go. So MJF's backstage, sweating and still taped up, blood all over himself. Still licking his wounds. From the battle he had with Takeshita. He's trying to tell a story. He's trying to tell a story about how you just don't know what you're capable of until you're pushed to the edge and you're in that moment of facing adversity. And the cliff notes of the story is that he's in high school. He's got a Camaro. He's got this chick that he's just been crushing on, that he gets her in the car, and basically he's like a point away from having his license revoked. And one thing leads to another with bad weather, and he crashes into a phone pole.
That's not what he said, LaBar. That's not what he said.
What you don't? What do you want to do Do you want to reenact, Lisa?
Well, for
the video viewers. No, you don't have to.
Let's just say there was a sexual reference made. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, there was a sexual reference made.
Crashes in, and her name's Liv for legal reasons. Crashes into a phone pole, realizes he's screwed up and he's going to lose his license. He basically takes his female passenger companion and puts her in the driver's seat, so she's going to take the rap. Basically meaning, moral of the story, he will do whatever it takes to survive, no matter what.
Or are you trying to say that he'll do whatever it takes to get ahead? Sorry, I had to go there. I couldn't hold back anymore.
Oh my God, Jimmy, I love you.
Thank you. Good night,
Somebody
everybody.
had to bring it up. Somebody just had to bring it up. I wasn't expecting it to be you.
Jimmy has left the building. We're not going to get any better than that from Jimmy.
That's it. He can't even talk about potatoes tonight. That's it, Jimmy.
How many pounds of potatoes in MJF's mouth was that?
Wow. I have no idea.
Jimmy, you need to cool off. Asa, go ahead.
Listen, I'm going to tell you something, okay? I'm not going to start with that part. I'm going to say I'm very big on presentation. And when the door opened, you had MJF sitting on a futon that's on sale for about $120 on Walmart right now. Okay? And this man is claiming to be rich every week. You need to give him a locker room that shows that. In addition to that, he starts talking about I hope we don't get demonetized, but he starts talking about a blowjob. You lost me after the blowjob and the cheap futon. Like, that's it. I'm not listening to anything else. But once I come into terms to what you're saying, I'm like, did he just confess to murder on like live television? Like, where's the police here? Like,
no, she's alive. She's alive. Remember, he put his finger on her. No, she's alive. It
doesn't matter. He confessed to a crime. I should say he confessed to a crime on live television. It was a miss for me. You lost me after the blowjob. Like, okay.
Jimmy, how much script and communication coordination do you think was done about this promo to the office?
I think there's again, I can't say for sure because I'm not there, but it seems like MJF has a little bit of creative freedom to say things that he doesn't have to clear through creative or even the censors. I think tonight may have pushed. I get pushing the envelope. There's nothing wrong with pushing the envelope, but my goodness, you don't want to shred it. And I think it may have gone a little too far tonight.
I can think of different examples of if I'm pushed to the edge, I need to do whatever I need to do to survive. That would have delivered the message differently than the example that he chose to use.
Right.
I think he might be going through I don't know, it's not even a midlife crisis. He's like 12. So I don't know, maybe puberty. It might be puberty.
Either that or I'm wondering how far he thinks he can go before somebody pushes back and says, hey, that's enough of that. You can't.
There's no pushing back on him after that promo. You allow him to cut after Double or Nothing. Really?
Yeah, fair.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the leverage is in his court. I mean, he is legit. He's a free agent in 11 months, and so I feel like it's kind of, even if he crosses the line and has to ask for forgiveness rather than permission, if it gets conversation going, if it gets buzz on social media, if it sells some tickets and some buys, he just turns to the boss and goes, "Do you want to lose me? Do you want to retain me? Like what? You know, I mean, I think he's in he's already in the Wild West, and he has additional license to kill." You know, I'm trying to finish the metaphor, but AEW is a little bit of a Wild West, and they this is their 26-year-old who they want to hold on to, and he knows that, and he knows he's probably got a job over here if he wants to take a job. So I think this is a very interesting situation that he's in. So
bothered by the cheap futon. That's not the right.
I do get what you're saying. I mean, no cheap futon sleeping bitches are coming into his locker room. I mean, he needs to have a more Taj Mahal kind of presentation of where he's
right.
He doesn't match the presentation that he's like. His scar is worth more than the futon. I mean, now I don't know. It might not be real. Who knows?
Yeah, that was a lot, and we still have more MJF to come. So
he is the world champ. He should be all over the show. I will say that. But this one, it was a miss for me. It was a miss promo-wise for him, which is a shocking thing to say because I love everything MJF does.
And it should be noted, he said for legal reasons.
But I'm really happy that he was having a great time while driving the car. Maybe next time he should learn how to control his emotions because apparently he can't.
He was a junior in his blue Camaro in high school and just couldn't control.
Wait, Jimmy has something to say.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't.
He said for legal reasons, her name is Liv, and then there's a picture circulated on social media of MJF with Liv Morgan. That's now that's just exploded.
Oh, wow.
I know, I saw that, but the description of the girl he gave doesn't fit with Liv Morgan.
Correct.
Yeah,
right.
Correct. Hopefully that was on purpose. All right, up next, this one. Here we go. The Garcia Guevara Gauntlet. Now, the idea here is Ricky Starks, who stay with me, folks. Ricky Starks beat Chris Jericho a few weeks ago, but he's got to go through this gauntlet to get a match again with Chris Jericho. The gauntlet starts against Angelo Parker, who Ricky Starks beats, and then in a matter of seconds, Matt Menard slips on the banana peel and he rolls up Matt Menard. I think Menard is hurt. I think he's been hurt, and that's why but at the same time, it's like, well, where's Jake Hager? Can't you find somebody else? Why whatever? But they stack up quick wins, Parker and then Menard, and so now it's up against Daniel Garcia. And while he's fighting Daniel Garcia, a masked man in a lucha mask hits Starks with a Judas effect. That then leads to Garcia getting the pinfall on Ricky Starks, and then the masked man reveals himself to be Chris Jericho. So
we knew it was Jericho the entire time.
Right. So parallel story of Bryan Danielson having to do all these things to get to MJF. This one gets cut short. Ricky Starks does not succeed in his gauntlet. Jimmy, I'll let you try to unravel this one.
No, I wish I could unravel this one. There's so many little things that I could want to nitpick about. Of course, you brought up the dreaded roll up, which seems to be the finish of the century so far. Everybody's doing it. It happens far too often, and that works better as a finisher than anything else they're doing out there, including the twisting, burning 450 hammer Phoenix splash. You know, I had to get that in tonight as well.
Get your shit in.
But there's the little things like. You get the interference from the so-called mask-wearing fan on Ricky Starks. Where's security here? Where's the referee? Was he being distracted? I didn't even notice.
Yes, they were being distracted on the opposite corner by one of the JS people.
Yeah, there you go. And then all of a sudden, this guy comes over the barricade and nobody's making a move. Little things like that. Just and don't get me wrong. I kind of figured that it was Jericho from the get-go. But at the same time, it just the little things that you could have had to make it better, where let's say security tries to stop him from entering the ring, and that's where he reveals who he is, and they go, "Oh, I don't know."
Issa, why is Ricky Starks? Why is this? Ricky Starks has already beat Chris Jericho. Why is this a thing?
Nothing about this makes any sense. Nothing. Jericho should be having a gauntlet to get back to Ricky Starks if that's what he wants to do. Right. I hated it. You're gonna kill the momentum that Ricky Starks has going for himself. There was no point in this. There's no point to JAS. I still don't know what JAS has done for anybody. Look at the people that they're feuded with and tell me who has looked better after finishing a feud with JAS.
I think I commend what Jericho's trying to do since the inception of AEW. Jericho's tried to give every rub he can give to every single person possible. Hence why Jericho's had several factions.
Well, he's rubbing too many ones out.
Well, if he was going to give Ricky Starks the rub would be that he'd want to do anything in his power to get back in the ring with Ricky Starks to avenge that loss.
Yes, before we even get to that, I'm at the point now where I almost think like, this needs to, like, I look at Jericho, I look him in the ring with Menard and Parker and Garcia, and Hager's obviously Hager, but he's not even there all the time. I just think that Jericho the company doesn't match him at this point. It fit when Jericho had, MJF and Wardlow, and Sammy's an exception. Sammy's not of size, but Sammy's got a personality, and he's getting, so Sammy kind of has it, but I just feel like we're trying too hard. Like Jericho's trying to continue to reinvent a Jericho stable, and I just don't buy it at this point. But nevertheless, that aside, like I want to ask you this, Jimmy, because I saw enough of these conspiracy theories on social media. Starks again comes up short, gets beat. Starks was picture leaked. He was backstage with Cody Rhodes at Rumble. Blah blah blah. I've seen some conspiracy theories of like maybe Starks was supposed to win this gauntlet, and maybe it's punishment because like AEW babyface being pushed is seen with the AEW defector back to WWE and Cody wins a Rumble. Like, do you think you've been there, you've seen the politics. Do you think there's anything to that, or do you think that's pure Twitter gossip?
I think right now it's Twitter gossip until I'm proven wrong. But at the same time, you never know, because there are some personalities that are in high positions that are easily I don't want to say offended, but taken aback by situations like this, where they think, oh, it doesn't look good for us for him to be associating with someone from the other team, so to speak.
Not just someone from the other team, current founder and EVP who left for the other team.
There you go.
I think there might be a sore spot just because it's Cody.
Yeah, and Cody even said there apparently Cody has his bus, as a lot of the top stars have these days to travel. Cody even said there was more friends, some AEW friends that were on the bus. They just happened to be smart enough to stay on the bus and then come walking around with him like Starks did, and Starks got called on some security footage. So I can only imagine MJF or who else could have been on that bus.
Oh, if you want to talk conspiracy theories, maybe Ricky Starks is thinking, hey, by associating with Cody and getting noticed, maybe this is a way for me to get out of the situation I'm in now and head over.
There's no getting out of that situation. You just get taken out of TV and never seen again, like Miro and Andrade.
Okay, fair enough.
Let's do some super chats. John Jordan, $5. Pushing back. I think we've seen hundreds of examples of no leadership in this Wild West company. Jimmy, wash your mouth out with soap. I mean, there is a fine line of Tony Khan trying to be a progressive young leader who's of the people of his locker room, trying to be friends, on a certain nose to nose level, but there's a fine line of doing that and still maintaining a authoritative stance to
Agree.
where to not be pushed around. And so I think that's probably where he's
Absolutely.
combating. When AEW started again, Tony seemed like the breath of fresh air, the young kid who's 40 or thereabouts, and they're on the level with his talent versus old man Vince, who's you can't get a word with him. But I think over time it starts to become, all right, well, are you still the boss?
Right.
Do you still have
See,
that power?
that's the difference with Vince. Vince was friends with certain talents, but at the same time, once it was time for work, there was that difference where they knew that Vince was the boss.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was that separation of friend and boss when it came time to doing business, and they all understood that.
Jimmy, do you have any? Because I always loved your stories. I know you've been caught in elevators, putting out your cigarettes with Vince and this and that. Did you ever get to share any soda pops with Vince? Did you ever get to have that social hour with Vince, or did you always kind of just try to mind yourself away from him and not getting that crosshair?
I tried to stay away from that, but on that same trip, actually, after TV, after the on the way to the building, getting caught with the cigarette, getting into the elevator. Afterwards, we went back to the hotel, and as we did back in the day, you'd go to the bar and have a few pops and relax and kick it back. And there was some music playing and there was some dancing on the floor. And that was back in the days when there were the fedorettes. And there was like that unwritten rule. There was no fraternizing with the fedorettes. So I didn't do anything with the fedorettes. They were dancing. So I said, hey, can I join you guys on the dance floor? Because I like dance music. I like to dance. I was out there dancing on the dance floor and stuff like this. And just, doing my thing. And all of a sudden Vince walks into the bar. And I went, I'm wondering if I should get off the dance floor right now. I didn't say that. So here comes Vince storming up. He says, what do you think you're doing, pal? And I said, well, I'm just dancing, Vince. I'm not doing anything else. I'm just dancing. He says, dancing? You call that dancing? That's not dancing. This is dancing. And Vince just starts, doing his thing. And I was like, okay, this is time for me to moonwalk out of here. And let Vince do his thing. And that was it. That was about it. And the next day at TV, he was like, I was just messing with you, pal. Yeah.
That's great. At least he was dancing, though. Did he have good dance moves?
No comment.
No Vince McMahon on Dancing with the Stars, huh?
Probably not.
Jimmy, what was your soda pop of choice?
Oh, I used to be like, I'm from Canada, so it started off with beer, but I didn't drink a lot of beer. But then, hanging around with the crew, it was Jack and Coke.
Pretty basic. All right.
Yeah.
Another super chat here before we move on, coming to us from Michael Martinez. Attending my first AEW live event, great time. Jericho came out during a break and shouted he would beat Eddie every night and got so much heat, I assume he means Eddie Guerrero.
There you go.
That's amazing.
It was El Paso after all, so.
Yep.
And we did. I didn't mention earlier. We did see Takeshita do a little Eddie tribute as well before hitting the frog splash. Right. Okay, moving on. As we got Roosh versus Bryan Danielson here now. Now the stipulation here is that if Danielson can get this win, this would be whatever win in a row. This would complete the weekly gauntlet, so to speak, of if Bryan wins, he's going to get his Iron Man match against MJF for the title at the pay-per-view here in a few weeks. A little side thing here is Bryan is shown in the trainer's room with Takeshita, checking on Takeshita, and the door gets slammed shut and locked. And so Roosh makes his entrance. MJF comes out, berates Aubrey Edwards, the ref, on the mic, and says, start the count here. Bryan is late for the match. And so they start the 10 count, and then they show split screen. Bryan breaks out of the trainer's room and makes his way, makes it in time to the ring. And then we proceed to get a match that, Bryan is, by God, in the Crimson Mask. And but aside from that, I mean, social is buzzing that this might have been one of the best matches, if not the best match that AEW Dynamite's ever had on TV. That's high praise, but I also will say I think this was a very entertaining match.
Mhm.
Jimmy, let me go to you before we even get to the finish and the whatever. This match and the story of what this match meant, meaning Brian gets his title match if he comes through. How did this come off to you?
I enjoyed them. It was a hard hitting, very physical match that told a story. And this is why the blood in this match meant something. I don't think it was needed earlier in the show. And because there was blood earlier, it maybe took away a little bit of the having the blood in this match. If you know what I mean, I don't think it was needed in that first match. But that being said,
real quick, Jimmy, in your opinion, like I said, I think we established the blood with Takeshita, everything manufactured.
Right.
This blood came off as accidental. The way that it happened, this came off as accidental.
Yeah.
Do you agree, or am I, or did I get worked on this one?
No, I you know what? It may have been accidental. And that being the case, it just goes to further show that regardless of whether it was incidental or accidental or undone intentionally, it wasn't needed in that first match anyways, regardless of whether there was supposed to be blood in this match or not. But I did enjoy the match very much. I thought, nitpicking a little bit, I thought Rush could have sold a little bit more of Brian's chops. And because it was so physical in the one spot where they were headbutting each other like rapid fire and stuff like that, maybe a little over the top. But then again, that was the type of match it was. But in short, really enjoyed the fight. Let's put it that way.
Issa, where did this one stand? I saw social claiming this to be the greatest Dynamite match ever.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this match. I also didn't think it needed the blood. I mean, there was so many hard hitting moments and so many brutal moments that could have had the same effect without the blood. But there was at one point where the camera zoomed in and Brian is on the mat, in the bloody face. It was a great visual. So I go back and forward with, did we need the blood or not? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I gotta tell you, like I told you, in ring wise, we saw a lot, and this wasn't all of it. There was another match that I thought was an excellent match, but this one takes match of the night for me. After kind of like thinking about it for a minute, I was like, this match was absolutely everything, and it was Brian's last step to get to MJF. So I needed this match to deliver, to be very good, to be hard for Brian to win it, because you kind of knew he was going to win all of these matches, but the other opponent always looked great. And I think it did wonders for Rush. Also, the crowd was incredible. The chants in Spanish pop for that big. Yeah. This was great.
And Brian does ultimately end up winning this match with the knee. After the match, MJF, who's on commentary during this whole thing, he comes to the ring, also hits Brian with the dynamite ring on his hand, and then locks in the arm bar. So MJF all over the show, but I don't think there's any complaint about that. He's the top heel. He's the champ. So, but it is official. MJF versus Bryan Danielson in a 1 hour Iron Man match coming up in a couple weeks on March 5th, I believe, is pay-per-view. So
yes, the only match made for the pay-per-view that's less than a month away. Yes,
that is the only match made. So we will refrain from making our predictions until we get closer, because we'll see what transpires between now and then. But
we'll make our predictions the morning off when they finish adding matches to the card.
All right, up next we get a trios championship match: Top Flight and AR Fox versus the Elite of Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. We get some big false finish. Again, this is where the show is a buffet. This is a high flying spot fest of choreography. We get a big false finish of, I thought, AR Fox the 450 on one of the Bucks. I thought maybe this is it. Then we get another one where he counters the One Wing Angel, but finally Kenny Omega does win on a roll up counter.
See, there you go again,
Jimmy. We had we had 30 kill shots to the head. where they could have ended it.
A spot
And
fest,
they
a spot
and,
fest,
and they
and
and
it
they and
ended
they
on a
and,
roll
and
up.
they opt for the roll up.
Yeah, it just to me, let's see, was it Jake the Snake Roberts who recently commented on that? Yeah,
Yes.
what does he? Yeah, what does he know? Who did he ever beat? You know what I mean? Like, gee, that's the thing. You know, it's pretty much what I expected, and it's sad when I get to the point where I know this trios match is going to break down. Whether it starts off as a spot fest or somewhere along the line, it's just going to break down, and I'm just going to say, okay, that was cool. Yeah, that was fine. Whatever. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
Issa, after all that was done in this match, I'm convinced, Issa, you and Roman, you both could have batted your eyes, rolled your shoulders, flipped your hair the right way. You could have provided a distraction. I think you could have got a roll up on on AR Fox. I think you could have got his shoulders pinned for a 3 count. I think you could be a trios champion right now, given the formula.
Wow. I have enough personalities to hold all of these belts and extra. I have more, so I will be fitting. I was very disappointed in the finish of the match because it was such a good match. The match had so many spots in which I felt it could have ended. At one point, Matt Jackson did this fancy finish where he's spinning all 3 of them, and he doesn't get the win there. And I'm thinking AR Fox is gonna win at that point. I'm like, why are they not letting the Elite just finish this here? Incredible match. I will nitpick. I love this match. I love everybody involved in this match. I'm a big fan of the Elite. You guys know this, but a couple of the camera angles made some moves that should have looked like brutal, not look so brutal. And then at one point they went back to the hard cam and they look a lot more efficient than the camera angles they were going for. But maybe they were trying something new. But there was a couple of times where I was like, if I would have seen that from this angle, it would have probably looked a lot more devastating than what it ended up looking. But that's just me nitpicking. The ending is what I just can't. I can't. There was so many things that happened in this match to end it on a roll up. It's it's not a happy ending.
There was a point in this match where, I mean, look, we've seen Top Flight, we've seen AR Fox, and they've always gotten over every time we see them. They got to a point in this match where I thought maybe this should be a title change, like, because I think we've discussed this the past weeks. Who else in the trios title division is going to, take the crown away from the Elite? Like, so I mean, I kind of wonder, like,
there's no way we went through the best of 7 and waited like 3 months for that to end, for the Elite to drop the titles this soon.
Well, not at the time. They were in the women's time slot, not in the second to last before the main event. So yeah, I agree. But on paper, it's like, well, who are they going to lose it to? Who are they going to be challenged by?
Who else is left as far as trios group is?
House of Black.
House of Black is the only.
There's
exactly.
Moxley, Claudio, and Yuta are still a thing.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. It just.
I'm not ready for the titles to change hands just because it took so long for it to get here. But I could have just. I mean, there was a 1 week Angel. There was so many spots that would have just been such a much better finish, unless they're still trying to protect AR Fox, Top Fly. But yeah, it's the ending. My only complaint is the ending. I thought this match was incredible. Like, they showed off. And that's what I'm saying. It's like every time we saw an incredible match and you were like, okay, the show just peaked, somebody else came out and did some incredible things. Unfortunately, it ended here for me because I didn't really enjoy the main event, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, but like you said, there was a lot of entertaining stuff in this match where you went, "Oh, that's cool. That was nice to see." But a lot of vicious looking finishes. Like pile driver type, DDT type, landing on your head type match spots that should have been the finish. But again, here we go with, the roll up will work.
Justin LaBar said it at the beginning, a roller coaster, and this match it had it all. There was ups and there was downs, but overall, such talented people in the ring, and it was such a good time to watch the entire match.
Well, that leads us into the main event. It is the Gun Club versus the Acclaim for the AEW Tag Team titles. Now, in a promo earlier backstage, Billy Gunn is going to stay backstage. He's not going to come out with the Acclaim. So all that said, these guys work a tag match. The big point here comes on a ref bump.
A ref bump?
The ref gets hit with the
They killed him.
elbow, and
I
he
know.
just he ricochets himself off the ring. So ref bump. So all of a sudden we get ref bump. Billy Gunn comes out. We see Austin Gunn. He gets the title. Billy's picking up. Is this going to be the big turn? No. Austin takes the title, hits Billy Gunn. Colton also takes the other title, eventually hits Billy Gunn with the belt. And finally, on a roll up,
Mhm.
the acclaim gets pinned. 1, 2, 3. The Gun Club is your new AEW Tag Champs. Issa, they swerved us on the obvious, which might have been that Billy's going to go back with his sons, but I felt like this whole thing could have been tighter. This is just kind of this just kind of all hung out there, and the crowd reactions. There were some stunned crowd reactions, but I don't know if this was the ending to the show that they foresaw when they booked it on paper. What say you?
Yeah, I don't think the Kulo boys are ready for this yet. I wasn't expecting it, and at some point, I felt like I almost wish they would have done the Billy Gunn turn. I think that would have made this a little bit better, but with Billy Gunn not turning, then what happens? So the rematch, you have Billy Gunn turns, and it's not gonna feel like it was a big deal. That's what should have costed the Acclaim the titles, and I still don't think that it was time to change titles. You heard the pop, you heard the crowd, like they are so over, and I just don't think I don't think they're there yet. But it was a shocker. It was a shocker, and just I'm personally as a fan not happy with it. And as we sit here and try to talk about the show, I just don't think that it was done the right way. I think at some point then have Billy Gunn turn on them as well.
Jimmy, if you have the book, are you dropping the tag titles off the Acclaim right now?
Not yet, because like Gisa said, they are so hot right now. There is a time where you can take the titles off them and then generate enormous heat. But this isn't the right time. And as much as I enjoy watching the Gun Boys, I don't think they're the right guys for it. Unless, like you said, Dad turns and joins the boys in like trying to make good on the years he wasn't there for them, so to speak. But I don't think this was the right time because, these guys had a rocket strapped to them. They're just so over. And I think this, you saw the crowd too. They were shocked. They were shocked with this finish because I think some fans may have been predicting that they were going to lose the titles with a turn by their mentor, Billy, and siding with his boys and that didn't happen and they still lost the title. So I think in hindsight, it did more damage to the Acclaim than actually benefited the Gun Boys.
All right, so we're 3 weeks out. We're 3 weeks out from the pay-per-view. As Issa's pointed out, we only have one match advertised. That's the title match. It's hard to see them generating a number one contender for a tag title. Like I can't see the Gun Club defending the tag titles versus anybody else other than the Acclaimed. Are we just long playing this to the pay-per-view where Daddy Ass comes out with the Acclaimed and that's where the turn happens? Or Daddy Ass comes out and screws his sons and the Acclaimed gets the titles back? What is there to do? Who's the Acclaim's or who's the Gun Club? Sorry. Who's the Gun Club's next opponents? I guess is where I'm getting at. Like where are we at with the tag division?
That's a good question. I wish I had a good answer for you. Like you said, obviously there's going to be a rematch in the future because the former champs get their rematch, so to speak. Maybe it is at the pay-per-view. And even if you do the turn there, it's a day late and a dollar short, in my opinion. The turn should. He said, but the turn should have been the reason for the title change.
Yes, it wouldn't make sense for him to turn on them now, and it also wouldn't make sense for him to help the Acclaim get the titles back. Then why even switch it if you're gonna have the Acclaim get the titles back in a couple of weeks from now?
Okay, and as I do tend to get nitpicky with the officiating situation, the referee bump earlier in the night we saw MJF yanking the referee in the way. You know what I mean? This time it turned into him getting actually bumped out of the way. But this week, no second referee came out. Was it last week or the week before where there was a ref bump and a second referee came out to take over the match.
Yeah.
You know, there needs to be consistency. You can't have a referee come out 1 week to take over after a ref bump, but then all of a sudden, what, everybody's getting changed. Everybody's in the shower because this is the last match. It's the main event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate to say this, but I see Wayne in the chat saying traditionally they don't do rematches. We had the Acclaim get 3 matches against Swerve and Strickland. We just saw the trios go through 7 matches. They're doing too many rematches at this point, if I'm being honest. Hangman and Mox just went to 3 matches. They have a very bloated roster. We're seeing a lot of the same matches. That's not the case anymore. It used to be, but I do think we see a lot of rematches on AEW.
Yeah.
Super chat from John Jordan, $5 saying Swervy McSwerveston. Crowd popped on that finish. Did they throw the Acclaim's theme on to try to buffer that? Ew, overbooking City. I think what happened was they were actually they were light tonight. Whether it was because the Bunny Jamie Hayter match went short, whatever. They finished a little early, so it was kind of like they had this extra time, and so they ended with the Acclaimed eventually stands up, and they just ended with their music. But I think probably on paper the ending was the Gun Club is celebrating with the titles and go off the air. But again, they had an additional 60 seconds to burn, and I don't know this Dynamite, guys. This. Again, some very good. Maybe in
ring wise, one of the best shows we've seen.
Right, maybe the best match ever, potentially between Roosh and Danielson that we've seen. I don't know, but there's that. But then we just see some other decisions where it's like, again, we're Issa, to your point, we're 3 weeks from pay-per-view. Where are we? What are you doing?
Right.
So, That was Dynamite tonight. So hope you guys enjoyed. Again, comments, 5-star ratings, all that is appreciated. Let's go ahead and do our final thoughts, final plugs. Ladies first. Issa, the floor and microphone is yours.
Yeah, I thought tonight's episode was fun in ring. I really enjoyed the wrestling, but I was very confused by some of the decisions that were made. You guys can find me on YouTube, NYC Demon Diva. My Twitter handle is right down here, so you can go follow me and find everything that I do. You guys can find me also here on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
Jimmy?
Yeah, like you guys said, it was enjoyable in-ring product. Again, the little things, there's screws that need to be tightened, and communication between the talent in different matches and with the production team. And as far as finding me on here, you can find me here on Monday nights and Wednesday nights. You can find me doing my ref and rants on all my social media platforms from Monday to Wednesday, having a little fun with that. And now myself and my good brother in stripes, Brian Hebner, we do a little thing called Reffing It Up on Wednesday mornings.
Wednesday mornings, there you go.
Yeah. And you can also get your Ref and Rant t-shirts at prowrestlingtees.com.
Very good. I'm at Justin LaBar across Twitter and Instagram. So like and follow it up. I'll be back Friday morning with Dave LaGreca and Thunder Rosa for Spar with LaBar on Busted Open Radio on Sirius XM on channel 156. It is exciting times. We are heading closer to the next AEW pay-per-view. We, of course, have Elimination Chamber coming up. We have WrestleMania on the beyond horizon, so a whole lot to talk about here in the next 6 weeks.
Elimination Chamber is stacked. It's gonna be fun.
Very stacked show. So make sure you are following and subscribing Wrestling Inc. on whatever platform you prefer for your podcast. We have got a lot of content coming at you. Appreciate all of you again. Thanks to everybody in the live chat. But if you're listening or watching after the fact, that's great too. Please subscribe, leave a comment, share, tell a friend, do something on social, whatever it is, just engage. That will be the best thing you can do to support this podcast. It's been fun. It's been great. It's another Wednesday night with Issa and Jimmy. I always love it. It's literally, who likes hump day? Nobody. This is the best part of my hump day, is looking forward to talking to these two and then in the night. So that's going to be it. For all of us here, we thank you. For all of you out there in the podcast world, thank you. Be safe. We'll be back next week.